Hey guys, welcome today. We're just going to do some basics for people that are just getting started with pen and ink drawing. Give you a few tips and pointers as you're just getting started, materials to buy, and how to get those first sketches going. Listen, I hope you like this. I hope you watch my other videos, and please like and subscribe to my channel. All right, let's get started. All right, guys, my first tip is that when you are starting out, you need good materials, although you don't have to break the bank. You just need materials that are going to allow you to have a chance at some success here and have some fun. So the paper I use is not very expensive. This is a Canson watercolor paper. It's 140 pound, and that tells you the thickness. So it's almost like the thickness of a postcard. That's the thickness when you go to the art store. Not all brands are going to have the same thickness. When they say 140, I think they're supposed to, but they don't. So just feel them out. And I always think if it feels like a postcard, that's the right thickness. This one is cold press, and what that means, there's cold press and hot press. So the hot press, think of it like a hot iron, flattening it out. It's real smooth. Cold press tends to have a little bit of texture to it. I think that works better. So it doesn't have to be super expensive, but it has to be nice and thick so that the ink goes on it nicely. It doesn't bleed like cheap papers will sometimes do. So that's that. Next, you want to have an inexpensive, I like to use an inexpensive pencil for an underdrawing. This is a mechanical pencil, costs a couple of bucks, piece of cake. Get those at any store. Next up is the fountain pen. I think if you really want to give a shot at pen and ink drawing, you ought to buy one of these. They're only about 10 or 12 bucks. This is the platinum one. Comes with cartridges that you can change out. This one has, I use the carbon ink pen, or carbon ink ink cartridges, and those are waterproof when the ink dries. So that way, if you put watercolor on top of it or anything like that, it's not going to smear or get, when it gets wet. The only other option I can tell you, if you don't want to do a fountain pen, I think the Uniball pens sometimes work pretty well as well. Uniball, they glide nice and easy, and so that can be a inexpensive substitute if you're not ready to go with a fountain pen yet. And then the last thing, and by the way, with the carbon ink, this is an example of the carbon ink cartridges that I buy. They're just a few bucks on Amazon. You get a 4-pack, and each one of these cartridges lasts me a couple of weeks. So something like this will last me a couple of months with 4 of these. Lastly, a kneaded eraser. This is good for picking up that pencil drawing when you get done, laying down your ink. And the reason these are nice compared to like an old-fashioned pink eraser or something like that is this kind of lifts the graphite off of the paper, as opposed to rubbing and almost sanding away a little bit of the paper, which can actually sort of hurt your paper overall. This doesn't tend to leave any marks, doesn't take any of the paper away. So a kneaded eraser, the nice thing with them is if they start getting dark from too much stuff, you just kind of knead it like this and it's brand new again. This one will last you, months, if not longer. So, and I have links at the bottom of the video for all of the items that I use. I'm not being sponsored by anybody. Nobody's paying me to use these materials. These are the materials I actually use. So my second tip is that when you're drawing, you don't want to draw the same way. You don't want to hold the pencil or the pen, and you don't want to draw the same way you would write if you were writing, where you use your fingers to move the pencil around. Instead, what you want to do is you typically are going to hold the pencil or the pen a little bit differently, a little farther back from the tip, okay? And then you draw with your whole arm, not just your fingers and not just your wrist. So you kind of keep your wrist still and you keep your fingers still, and then you kind of move your whole arm around. So, and you'll see me as a lot of times before I even lay it down, I'll kind of move my arm back and forth. It's just kind of loosen things up, and then and then you find where you want to put it, and then you get your lines down, and it just kind of goes down, and it tends to be, a little bit looser that way. All right, so the third and the fourth tips I kind of combined here. The third tip is that you want to start with a pencil sketch. So I've already started outlining a pencil sketch. You can see my reference up in the corner of a tractor. And what I like to do is I get my pencil sketch going. Number one, it gives me a chance to make sure that I've got everything kind of laid out the way I want in terms of the proportions. You'll see like the distance between the gap between this tire and this tire on the tractor. I try to make sure that that gap is where I want it to be. For example, the gap between the dark spot of the tire underneath to the tire. There's like an open area here. You want to see if that is just where you want it to be. So that's what you're doing with a pencil sketch. It's very easy to just erase it if you don't like the way something looks, and you can keep working on it. You can see I kind of restate my lines until I get them where I want. Later I'm going to be able to erase those from the final pen and ink sketch. And then the fourth tip is, when you're sketching this out with your pencil, start with big basic shapes, and you can do as much of that pencil sketch as you want, and then go back later and put in your ink, and you can erase the excess lines. So you'll see, for example, obviously the tires are these large circles, and then the tractor you can break down. There's like a rectangle, there's like another rectangle here, there's like this tube shaped I don't know if it's a muffler or something, whatever that's coming off of there. You got this piece that's coming off the top. Even the cab is essentially like an extended, the bottom half of a both the far side that you can't really see, and then the front side. I've drawn these extended lines that I normally wouldn't have, just to kind of show you. But everything breaks down into these basic shapes, and then once you get some of the basic shapes, even if you just started with a big rectangle and a couple of tires, and then you can start breaking down within that. You can start looking for any pieces you want. At some point, you'll decide I can get the little details with the pen. I don't need to write them in now, but that's my next tip. All right, guys, here's my last tip, is draw from your reference photo, or if you're out in the field, you draw from what you're seeing out in front of you. Do not try to draw from memory. In fact, you should probably be looking at your reference or at your live material more than you look at your drawing as you go along. If you try to just draw from memory and say, I know what a tractor looks like or something like that, you're not going to be happy with your results. You're much better off probably spending like 75% of your time staring at your reference material, and then trying to lay down some lines as you go along.